once upon a time, in fact, not unlike this time, there was a sheriff, Sheriff Arpy, who had the idea that people should not be able to come here from other places.
Now, who knows where he got this idea from? It could be that he thought there's just really not enough to go around. There's not enough jobs, there's not enough food, maybe there's not enough land and places for people to live. Or maybe he just really didn't like people he thought were different from him, who spoke a different language or ate different kinds of food. Who knows why he thought this, but he believed it deeply in his heart.
Whatever the reason, he believed that everyone should never come to this country from other places, but not only that, that people who are already here, who came from somewhere else, or whose families came from somewhere else, or whose ancestors came from somewhere else, should go back home. He thought this would be the way to have a perfect country, if they just went back home. And so he got together all of his power. He made some phone calls to the congressmen and the senators and to evil supervillains and to Fox News broadcasters and people like that, and he gathered them all, and he got his power so that he could start sending people back home.
So his first brilliant idea was that he found as many people as he could find around where he lived who spoke Spanish. And he ordered some buses, and he made them all get on the buses, and he sent them back over the border into Mexico. Now, it did not matter that some of these people said, hey, my family's not from Mexico. My family's actually from Peru. Or my family is from El Salvador. Or I actually was born in this country, and my family has lived in California for many, many years. It didn't matter to him. He put them on the buses and sent them over the border.
He didn't have time to listen. He had people to send back. And so he just kept sending them back.
His next brilliant idea was to find as many different boats as he could find. He found some sailboats, and he found some really big cargo ships, and he found some yachts that people weren't using, and he rounded them all up. And then he looked for anybody in his community who he thought was Asian. And he put them on the boats, and he sent all the boats across the ocean to China. It did not matter that some people said, hey, my family is actually from Japan. My family came here from Malaysia. My family has lived in California for 150 years. It did not matter to him. He sent them all across the ocean.
Sheriff Arpy didn't listen. He didn't have time to listen because day and night he worked tirelessly with his database. He had the database of where everyone really belongs. And he would pull up every name from the database, and he discovered, actually, he went back far enough that there were people who came from Italy and Poland. And so he started sending those people back to Italy and back to Poland. And the further back he looked, he found that there were people living here who had come from every country in the whole wide world. And so he got together trucks and planes and buses and cars and boats and hot air balloons and one of those giant circus cannons, and he used it to shoot people back across the ocean. Everybody. He used high-tech teletransporters. He didn't care whether people had come because they wanted to make a living, or because they wanted to be reconnected with their families, or because they wanted to have religious freedom. He didn't care whether people came because they wanted to be here, or whether they came because somebody had forced them to come as slaves. He didn't care. He sent everyone back. Whether it was their parents who came, or their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-uncle-in-law once removed, he sent them back home. He sent the penguins from the zoo back to Antarctica.
And so there were some people before Sheriff Arpy got to them who thought, you know, I actually don't even know where my family is from. I never got to learn that. And some people said, you know, actually, if you go back far enough, my family is from 15 different places. How am I going to decide? How's Sheriff Arpy going to decide where to send me back? And there were some people who just really liked living in a community with lots of different kinds of people. And so they all got together, And they said, what should we do? What should we do? And they brainstormed and they came up with this ingenious idea. They put all of their smart thinking together from all the different places that they had come from, and they built their own island out in the middle of the ocean, the island of one big, happy human family.
But meanwhile, Sheriff Arpey wasn't done. He was still sending people back, and he sent everybody back. Everybody except for the Native Americans. He just couldn't figure out where they had come from. They had been here too long. But he had sent everyone back, except then there was one last record in his database. And he pulled it up, and there was the name, Sheriff Arpey. He realized that he had to deport himself. And he called all of those countries that he had sent people to. He even called the island of the believing in one human family forever, and no one wanted to have him. And so he was all alone, and he realized this whole thing might not have been such a good idea after all. And that's the story of Sheriff Arpey. We invite you all